It is now time to invite our panelists to the stage for our discussion on the value and impact of Colorado Air and Spaceport. Our moderator for the panel is Vicki Lee from the Colorado Space Coalition. We're excited also to have General Jay Lindell from the State Office of Economic Development and International Trade, Shuji Ogawa, the CEO of PD Aerospace, Adrian Tansing from Reaction Engines, Frank Trevino from Exodus Space Corporation, Brian Gulliver from Kimley Horn, and Crystal Morgan from United Launch Alliance. Vicki will guide us through the panel discussion, but we also hope to open the floor later for questions from the audience. Please give them all a warm round of applause as they come to the stage.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It really is wonderful to be here today in support of such an important and exciting Colorado Aerospace event. As I think many of you may know, the Colorado Space Coalition is an initiative of the Metro Denver Economic Development Corporation. And a key part of the Colorado Space Coalition's mission is really to help grow the state's aerospace economy and to help grow our state's many space assets. So, thanks to the enormous efforts of Dave Ruppel, the incredible leadership of the Adams County team, our elected officials throughout the state, and also a whole bunch of other industry stakeholders from throughout Colorado, Colorado is now a spaceport state. And that is a tremendous accomplishment. And we now have this incredible, exciting new space asset that we are so thrilled to be able to promote and support. So for this discussion, we're planning to dig into Colorado Air and Spaceport's role in the rapidly growing commercial space industry and its potential to grow Colorado's space economy and also serve as a globally recognized hub for commercial spaceflight activity. And we've got a really fabulous panel that is going to help us do this today. They seriously have such a breadth and depth of expertise. They're going to really help us, I think, shape out some of these discussion points. So let's start out by asking our panelists to say a few words about themselves and your connection with the space industry. And perhaps it's easiest to just go down the line, starting with Major General Jay Lindell.
Okay, Vicki, thank you very much, and my pleasure to be here today representing the state of Colorado Economic Development. And my role in the State Office of Economic Development is to promote aerospace and the defense industry in Colorado. And I have the honor and pleasure to talk to a lot of groups and exciting to promote this marvelous industry that is really a hub of technology and innovation for the state. And so can't wait to talk more about it here.
Thank you, Vicki. Great to be here. My name is Frank Trevino. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer with Exodus Space. At Exodus Space, we're actually developing a fully reusable, two-stage to orbit horizontal launch and horizontal lander space plane, the Astro Clipper. The Astro Clipper, we're going to initially start with a micro version capable of sending about 500 pounds into low Earth orbit and eventually progress to larger versions and eventually look at a human-rated version capable of carrying about 20 people or so.
Awesome. I'm Adrian Tansing. I'm the Contracts and International Trade Manager at Reaction Engines, Inc. I like to joke that I do everything but engineering there. So we are a UK company that has a US subsidiary here in Colorado. And we are connected to the spaceport because, as mentioned earlier, we have a test facility there, and it's been amazing. We are a UK company focused on hypersonic and space access propulsion, utilizing our breakthrough heat exchanger technology and our Sabre engine. And we're just so happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Krista.
Hi, I'm Crystal Morgan. I'm with United Launch Alliance, America's most reliable launch provider. We build our rockets and we design and develop them right here in Colorado. We're headquartered here. I run our state and local government affairs, and really get involved in what the economic impact is to the state with the industry and the suppliers.
Thank you. Shuji?
Hello, my name is Shuji Ogawa from PD Aerospace. We are one of the space startup company in Japan. Now we are developing a new type engine. We invented jet mode and rocket mode, the two functions engine. We will use the engine for horizontal space plane, and we will start the space tourism in the future in Denver. We are thinking now. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Brian Gulliver. I lead the Aerospace and Spaceport practice for Kinley Horn. It's an engineering consulting firm with an office here in Denver. I've been working pretty closely with Front Range Airport in Adams County on the licensing effort of Colorado Air and Spaceport, and I also consult for a number of spaceports around the country that do commercial space launch.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. We're going to begin with some prepared targeted questions for our panelists, but please be aware there's going to be an opportunity for some Q&A later on in the program. So as we move along, start thinking of some questions that you may like to ask of our panelists. You'll have that opportunity. Okay, so when we talk about the commercial space industry, there are many broad definitions. They encompass businesses, both large and small, well-established players, and also those younger entrepreneurial companies. But really, whatever definition we use, reliable and affordable access to space is critical to a successful and a sustainable commercial space economy. So to Brian, you have extensive experience in the planning and design of more than a dozen spaceports and launch facilities. So you've got a pretty unique perspective on the evolving needs of the commercial spaceflight industry. I wondered if you could share some insight into Colorado Air and Spaceport's role within the national spaceport landscape in terms of operational capabilities and opportunities to attract that commercial spaceflight business.
Sure. So I think as Dave mentioned, you saw that there's a number of spaceports already licensed in the United States. So right now there are 12 sites that have a license to operate as a commercial spaceport. Of those 12, there's 8 that can support horizontal reusable launch vehicles, similar to what's being looked at here at Front Range Airport. And so what's interesting is even though there's 8 sites that can support horizontal launch, every site's really unique. There's a saying in the airport industry, if you've seen one airport, you've seen one airport. The same thing applies to the spaceport industry. And so in the case of Colorado Air and Spaceport, there's a lot of really attractive elements to the spaceport. And Dave highlighted quite a few of those on his slide. What was fascinating to me is just the general proximity to a major metropolitan area like Denver and Colorado Springs and Boulder, where we have such a large concentration of aerospace companies, is very attractive for commercial space companies. It's a very easy way to get into the industry and connect with other companies. The other thing was highlighted was the proximity to Denver International Airport. And so when you look at a lot of the other commercial spaceports around the country, they tend to be in fairly remote places, and they tend to be further away from massive transportation hubs. And so being able to have a location that customers and other members of your company can travel to directly and just be minutes away from your spaceport where you operate at is huge. It's something that you don't see in many other locations. And so I think that's a huge asset for the spaceport here. One of the big things to think about is, and it was mentioned, is that this is really the first step in a much larger process. So, Dave showed on his slides a lot of the future development areas. A lot of that's starting to be planned in, and so now you're looking at taking this license and moving beyond the first step of obtaining the license and actually developing the spaceport and its capabilities. So we're really at an exciting time, because you're at the point now where we actually get to be involved in creating what that future looks like.
So we really are embarking on an exciting time.
It's an incredible time to be involved in the industry.
The time is now. Great. Thank you. Well, following up with the fact that I think it's no secret, especially to this audience, that aerospace is a huge economic driver. According to the Space Foundation's annual space report, in 2018, the global space economy grew by more than 8% and exceeded $400 billion for the first time. And the commercial space sector accounts for about 80% of that global space spending. So here in Colorado, unlike many other states, we benefit from having a dedicated aerospace industry champion, tasked with growing jobs, expanding the industry base, and promoting strategic partnerships that help Colorado aerospace thrive. And you do that just in the morning, right?
Before 9 a.m.
So General Indell, from that perspective, can you talk about how Colorado Air and Spaceport can leverage the aerospace and high-tech industry infrastructure that we already have here in Colorado? And as Colorado Air and Spaceport develops as a commercial space hub, how might that further influence Colorado's role as a leading aerospace state?
Well, thank you for the question, Vicki. The part of aerospace in Colorado and economic development, I really look for opportunity to brand and market aerospace in Colorado as an aerospace state. And until we received our license, I guess just a little over a year ago, we weren't an air and spaceport. We did not have a spaceport in Colorado. But states like Florida had 3 spaceports. California had 2. Texas had 2 spaceports. But Colorado, employing 29,000 direct employees and 190,000 indirect employees, and one of the leading states in the nation, did not have a spaceport. So this really helps us significantly to market and brand Colorado. And in economic development, you want to seize on all the opportunities you can to help market the state, brand the state, talk about what's in the state, our strengths, our businesses, research and development capability. And this has really been a big plus to be able to label Colorado as an air and space port and include it in a lot of the presentations and briefings, discussions that I do. So it has helped a lot. And I'll tell you, most of our state is national security oriented when it comes to space, and a lot of that is sensitive technology you tend not to talk about. So being able to have a global asset, an international asset as an air and spaceport right here is great to talk about and help market and brand Colorado. And especially in this industry, roughly, if you look at Colorado, about a $350 billion economy, depending on where our state budgeting planning office will make the estimates this year. But $36 billion is aerospace and defense, and you can probably pretty much say that in one word. So over 10% of our economy just based on aerospace and defense. So being able to market with a spaceport really is a significant value. Even though we're years away from a lot of the technology being developed, being able to market it and brand Colorado is extremely important.
And as I think, Jay, you and I have talked sometimes about the fact that Colorado in the past has always been almost the accidental aerospace state, because we have fortunately to have all these amazing space assets that we've inherited in the military space realm. Now is an opportunity for us to be really proactive in defining the future of our aerospace industry and ecosystem moving forward. So it's a great stake in the ground, I think, for that. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
So we all know that the commercial space sector is growing very rapidly, and as it does, more and more R&D and product development is being done by private companies. And that presents some unique opportunities and challenges for those businesses. At the same time, breakthroughs in aerospace technology development also encourage new markets and can become business catalysts across other industry sectors. So to Adrian, I'd like to ask, as a UK company that decided to headquarter its US operations in Colorado and operate at Colorado Air and Spaceport, we'd love to hear more about the factors that influence that decision, and how can Colorado Air and Spaceport support reaction engines as you navigate those challenges of developing a breakthrough technology?
Awesome, thanks, Vicki. A theme of today's event is that Colorado is an awesome aerospace state, and I would like to reiterate that it was a natural choice for a UK company to place their US subsidiary here. The aerospace market is amazing. The availability of workforce talent across the spectrum, also amazing, and frankly, it's just an awesome place to live.
That's right.
Colorado Air and Spaceport, I'll backtrack a little bit. When we were developing our hot test campaign, which we dubbed HTX, we were looking both nationally and internationally for test facilities that would be able to achieve the temperatures and durations that we were hoping to subject our heat exchanger technology to. The HTX test campaign intends to put our pre-cooler through temperatures and pressures that it would experience up to Mach 5 flight. And we looked all over the place and discovered that there wasn't a test facility in the world that would be able to meet those temperature and pressure durations. So the next step was to build our own test facility. And Colorado Air and Spaceport, we met Dave Ruppel at the Space Symposium in 2017, and it was a natural choice. Colorado Air and Spaceport, Dave Ruppel, and all of the staff there, Adams County has been incredibly supportive of our deciding to locate the site there. It enabled us to be closer to our growing U.S. operations. It enabled us to be able to grow as our future test operations develop, and just the support has been amazing. I can't remember the second part of your question. Sorry.
Oh no, we were talking about how reaction engines really is developing. The technology that you're developing is really breakthrough, cutting-edge technology. Is there an element of being located at Colorado Air and Spaceport that kind of helps with that challenge of developing the breakthrough technology?
Absolutely. Being located at the Colorado Air and Spaceport has provided flexibility and the ability to grow that is very unique and invaluable to our decision to locate there. In addition, we are using a J79 engine out there to achieve these temperatures and pressures, so we're allowed to make a little noise, which is nice.
And how loud is that?
Oh gosh, well, you helped with that, Brian. It gets pretty loud. We do get to afterburner mode, so it's very exciting. As far as Colorado Air and Spaceport helping us with our test campaign out there, the best thing that Colorado Air and Spaceport can do is to continue doing what they've been doing all along, which is celebrating our successes alongside us, continuing to support our growth. We knew that Colorado Air and Spaceport was an amazing place to locate our test facility, but we never could have imagined how gracious and supportive and amazing the staff has been there. In addition, as comes with our aerospace territory and breakthroughs in technology, there are a lot of regulations to navigate. There are a lot of government agencies that we need to partner with. There are several permits that are required to put a test facility in place. And Colorado Air and Spaceport helped us establish those partnerships with Adams County and with the FAA, helped us navigate those regulations, and continue to do so today as we grow.
Thank you to you and your team for joining us today. Could you please tell us about your goals for offering spaceflight for passengers? And what made you decide to explore Colorado Air and Spaceport as a potential basis for your operations?
Okay. The first of all, this location, the first mile is free. That's an important thing for
this is true.
For space tourism. Yeah. Honestly, my company is very small, tiny company, but thank you for finding us. At first, I don't know which location is the best way. Best location is for us, our development at starting a business. But now I realize this is the best location because there are so many collaboration members. There are many attractive, and they have challenging spirits. It's very important. In Japan, many people doesn't take a risk, but in the US, many members has a risk. It's very important thing. And now we are we have a small funding. Of course, ANA and HS. This is a bit good supported. We have. Of course, the funding is very important thing, but also collaboration and the spirit, they're most important thing, I think. So in this area, I feel the much spirits and opportunity to have a collaboration. So I now not decided to start actually to establish a new company and a new branch in this area, but I want to make a new company in this area near future.
Excellent. That's very good news to hear indeed. Thank you. So as we've heard from Adrian and Shuji, one of the most exciting aspects of the commercial spaceflight industry is the rapid pace of innovation and technology as companies work to develop solutions for the continuously evolving commercial space economy. Horizontal takeoff and landing for space vehicles is a great example of that, and is a capability that Colorado Air and Spaceport is focused on supporting. Frank, the Astra Clipper vehicle that Exodus Space Corporation is developing is being designed as a horizontal launch and landing space plane that's going to transport passengers and cargo to low Earth orbit. Can you tell us how vehicles like the Astra Clipper can support commercial space industry growth by offering horizontal takeoff and landing? And what makes Colorado and Colorado Air and Spaceport an attractive site for developing that vehicle and your business product?
Well, you know, space planes are not a new concept. They've been around for a while. We were talking about this earlier, since we're both in the space planes. And when I think of space planes originally, I think of the space shuttle. But when we look at the space shuttle, we still look at the space shuttle landing horizontally, but it still takes off vertically. And when you look at the vertical rockets today, 95% still take off vertically. And when I look at that, or when we look at that, it's not a bad thing. I don't want to say it's bad over here. But we've learned a lot of lessons from that, and we learned that, you know, it's not a good sustainable model in the future. So when we look at the Astro Clipper, we look at some of the benefits that the Astro Clipper from horizontal, you know, takeoff and landing might bring. You know, number one, it's fully reusable. When you look at vertical launchers, there tend to be some leftovers at the bottom of the ocean. There tends to be some space debris from them as well. So again, we want to make sure that there's a fully reusable component here. But we also look at the fact that with the horizontal launcher, we can actually take off and take cargo up, but we can also bring cargo back down. You don't see that a lot with the vertical launchers in this case. For that makes sense for us economically. Every mission, we know we can go up, bring some stuff down. That just makes good business sense. You know, but I look at the last piece, and I think it comes back to frequency. You know, one of the things that we want to see in the future is how do we equate space planes to what we see in the aviation industry? You know, how many flights are there that go from Denver to Los Angeles over a month? Well, how many launches can we do from Colorado to low Earth orbit in a month? So we want to get to a point where we can see that frequency to help bring that cost down. And again, when we look at all these benefits, we always look and say, how does this lead to affordability back to our customers? Because that's the key here. How do we make this affordable? Because in our opinion, the more that you make space affordable, the more you have access to space, okay? And not just for cargo, but for everyone. The more we can access space frequently as an industry, the more we see growth. The more growth we see, the more we see that space economy grow. And overall, that just benefits everyone, in our opinion. Now, to follow up on your second question, Colorado.
Yeah, what aspects of Colorado and Colorado Air and Spaceport can be helpful to you as you do that?
You know, we have our offices here in Littleton, and it just makes sense for us. Number one, every spaceport needs a space plane, and in this case, space planes. You know, you've done a great job of attracting not just Exodus, but other space planes as well, which is the goal overall. But for us, I think there's a couple pieces here. Number one, our suppliers are here. And that plays a big role for us on the technology side when we need to be able to have that face-to-face. Two, our focus is on the satellite industry, and when you look at Colorado, there's over, 400 companies, I think, that are in space or support space, and that's huge. And that's a great company to be in, and when we look at that, we look at a lot of our clients here as well in the satellite industry. And I think third is talent, being able to have access to that talent. But I also think that when we look at this, we know that we're going to attract talent from outside the state. And what better way to convince a family to come to Colorado than just showing them a picture of Colorado or talking about the lifestyle here in Colorado. Those are important factors when families think about relocating, and we think that's a very big factor for us. Now, when it comes to the spaceport, again, it goes back to the fact that it's frequency and location. One of the ideas we have is vehicle launch on demand. We know that some of the satellite companies might need to get a satellite up quickly. So instead of having to ship it to California, Florida, why not just ship it down the road here at the spaceport? And that makes sense for us.
That sounds really good. Yes. And you touched on, Frank, the fact that Colorado has this incredible aerospace economy. We are #1 in the US for private aerospace workers per capita. And one of the other reasons why Colorado's aerospace industry is so strong is because we have this very robust mix of smaller entrepreneurial space companies and large prime contractors who work together to collaborate on the nation's major space projects. And it's an ecosystem that requires both to survive and thrive. Adrian, Suji, and Frank have shared some great insight from the smaller company perspective, but we'd also like to hear from a larger company, and that would be you, Crystal. ULA is one of our anchor aerospace companies. We're delighted Colorado is home to ULA's headquarters and more than 1,000 of your very talented rocket scientists and engineers. So while we know that Colorado Air and Spaceport is not in the market for the type of vertical launch operations that you specialize in, can you tell us how its growth as a hub for commercial space activity can positively impact ULA's operations in Colorado? So are there synergies perhaps that large prime contractors such as ULA can leverage?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things, we are a large contractor, but we have 215 suppliers in the state of Colorado. So when you think about, it's actually 1,100 employees now, but all the jobs that are created from the suppliers, the economic impact to the state over a 5-year spend is near $500 million. And this is a very competitive time in the market right now. It's exciting. It is competitive, and yes, everyone up here, we've been talking about why Colorado is a great place to locate and the capabilities that are here in the workforce, but we would be remiss, and obviously I'm in government affairs, but the delegation that Colorado has, Congressman Perlmutter calls himself a space geek. He's a space rock star in this world, and he really is. And Lieutenant Governor Primavera, came out to see the rocket factory, and the support that the United, the congressional delegation, the state delegation, they need to stay united because with this competition comes other states who want to take companies out of Colorado and move them to other states, and there's a battle. And so when you ask what does this ecosystem do, obviously growth in Colorado is good for ULA, it helps us with our workforce, it helps us, but organizations such as Colorado Space Coalition, Colorado Space, CSBR, all these things, the more of a strength in industry that we have, that's more firepower that we give to those associations, that we give to the people on the Hill, that we give to our state leaders. So, what's good for Colorado is great for ULA, and we have been fortunate that we have the members that we can reach out to and say, we need your support on this. There are jobs at risk. The national security is at risk. And so I think that the growth of this ecosystem is beneficial to the state, it's beneficial to all of us, and our representatives should be commended for what they do for us as a state.
Thank you, and thank you for mentioning too that the threat of competition from other states could not be more
It's real.
It is. It's yeah. It can be pretty brutal, and it's something that on a daily basis we're dealing with. And as you mentioned, that having that strength of congressional support has been phenomenal and has been responsible for so much of the success. Actually, going back to Brian for a little bit, because Crystal, you mentioned kind of that legislative piece, that legislative advocacy piece. We've been hearing, Brian, some of the reasons why Colorado Air and Spaceport is so well suited to capture space business. But are there national policy or regulatory efforts that we really should be tracking or influencing in order to maximize Colorado Air and Spaceport's potential for space business?
Yeah, the regulatory framework is constantly evolving. So right now there's existing regulations in place for commercial space flight, but the FAA has recently undertook some rulemaking, initiated a rulemaking process for regulatory reform for launch licensing. I know Colorado Air and Spaceport and other stakeholders here in the state were involved in the regulatory, it was called an Aviation Rulemaking Committee to help review the proposed rules and provide insight to the FAA. Those types of activities should continue. The notice of proposed rule is out now, currently being reviewed by the public, and probably within 6 months or so we expect to have some kind of decision on that. In addition, that's mostly for launch licensing, but in the near term we'll also have some new rules coming out for launch site licensing. So we'll need to be able to monitor that to see what the impacts are of any proposed rules on how the operation of the spaceport is. Other elements that are typical for spaceports usually revolve around environmental. So the FAA does a really great job when it comes to safety and environment, but one of the challenges can be just with the timelines associated with environmental reviews. So if there's anything that we can do to help to streamline some of those timelines to help make those more manageable, I think would be huge.
And could you give a sense of those timelines? I know they probably vary from spaceport to spaceport in terms of the experience.
Sure, it can vary greatly. We've seen anything from a 2-year time frame to a 6 to 7 year time frame for environmental reviews. And so when a site is looking at getting a license, those timelines can be very worrisome, especially if you have maybe an operator that wants to come and utilize the facility. It can take a long time to go through that process. Now that the spaceport has its license and has completed that process, it's in a good position. But I think there's reason that those timelines should be a lot shorter, and I think we need to focus on trying to find ways to help that.
Okay, good. So you're going to take care of that, right?
Trying.
Okay, so education, aerospace workforce is a theme that comes up time and time again, I think, in all the panel discussions we have, all the meetings we have around Colorado Aerospace. How do we ensure that we have a robust pipeline of talented workers that are going to continue to fuel our leading aerospace workforce? So I think, for maybe start off with Crystal with this question, but as you develop cutting-edge technology and for your space vehicles, what are your workforce needs? And are you finding qualified workers? Are there changes in skill sets and expertise? Does that aerospace worker of tomorrow look different to the one of today?
I don't know so much about different, but obviously with what's going on in the state, the need is growing. This is already a competitive marketplace for finding these workers and retaining them. Constant need for aerospace engineers, mechanical engineers, software engineers. Obviously for ULA, with us being headquartered here, we also have needs for finance and HR, and so it's not that. The Colorado high schools and the universities here have been a great resource, but with this growth, we're going to have to reach out and get external, outside of Colorado, bring in this talented workforce and continue with this stream. One thing that ULA does is we have a a robust internship program. And we pull in from 50 universities across the United States every year, and that is a workforce that we, for the most part, retain. And so, and FYI, that application process starts on Labor Day, and it's a heavily sought after program that closes quite quickly. But I mean, that's something that a lot of these companies and the industry needs to be aware of, is that we've got to start bringing in from outside the state, because there's going to be a demand for it as these people continue to work so hard to bring in more jobs.
Exactly. So the problem definitely isn't solved. We still have to keep pushing for
Absolutely.
growing a homegrown Colorado aerospace workforce, and that is going to take multiple approaches, reaching out to kids of all levels for exposure and experience in the industry.
We want to bring a man to the stage that has experience in all three areas. Oh yeah, he was a congressman too, and is now called the governor of the state that he has always called home. Please help me welcome the governor of Colorado, Jared Polis. The governor was gracious enough to host us last night at a state dinner, so we had a chance to meet the team from PD Aerospace and proved to be a great host. We really do appreciate it. One more time for Governor Polis.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jim. I really appreciate the kind introduction. I want to extend my gratitude to Adams County Manager Ray Gonzalez and the delegation from Japan, including the leadership team from PD Aerospace and ANA, for spending the last week in Colorado. We had a wonderful opportunity to welcome them yesterday at the Governor's Mansion. We shared our famous Colorado sake with them, and they were suitably impressed. I'm glad I was able to get here to catch the tail end of the panel of experts. The aerospace industry in Colorado is a huge source of pride and jobs, and my administration will do everything we can to match the passion that you bring to the aerospace industry to help make sure that the state supports the inspiring work being done all over Colorado. For decades, our colleges and universities and military installations have helped create a key pipeline of talent that has helped advance innovation and technology across the aerospace sector and truly made Colorado a great leader. And today we're proud that we have not only the second highest concentration of college-educated employees in America, but the highest concentration of aerospace employees anywhere in the country. The University of Colorado receives more NASA funding than any other public university in America. Our School of Mines is first place in the world to offering advanced degrees in space mining. It's an emerging market. And students at Metro State University in Denver have access to hands-on experience working in satellite manufacturing facilities on campus. Look, from astronauts to engineers to pilots to global positioning satellites to ground support, Colorado is producing graduates that are advancing our understanding of space and the future of the aerospace industry. And we're going to need all of that. We already have one of the largest aerospace economies in the country. In fact, 9 of the nation's top aerospace contractors have significant operations in Colorado. And of course, we're very excited about adding the future with adding PD Aerospace, Reaction Engines, and so many other visionary companies to that growing list of successful aerospace stories in Colorado. Coloradans have always fostered big dreams and encouraged innovation. And we're looking forward to working with our local leadership, business leadership, and federal leadership to help create the ideal atmosphere for the further success of the aerospace industry in Colorado. I want to thank all of the speakers and panelists for sharing their brain power with us today. And I always love to talk about aerospace in Colorado, and of course, especially here where the first mile is free. We have enormous opportunities for aerospace industry not only to be part of Colorado's past and part of our present, but an even greater part of Colorado's future. Thank you.
We want to thank the governor. He has had a busy schedule the last couple days and found time for both of us last night and then again today to come by. It shows you his commitment, his administration's commitment to the aerospace industry. Vicki is coming back up. We're going to continue our panel discussion, and then we are briefly going to open up the floor for questions. So if you have heard something, be prepared. We'll have a roaming microphone. Gabe will walk around. Just put your hand in the air and we'll get to you as soon as we can. But I think Vicki wants to continue with that workforce discussion, so we'll allow that, and then some Q&A from the crowd.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I just wanted to give other panelists the opportunity to comment on that workforce question as appropriate for your various industries. If not, no worries, but Frank, would you like to?
Well, you know, as a startup, we are challenged to find talent. We do have talent right now. It is, you know, it is going to be challenging, and I think as we grow it gets even more challenging for us. You know, this is where we want to develop more relationships with some of the local schools, the universities, and I think, as you were saying, we have to search outside the state of Colorado. But I think that's where it comes back again to say, you know, the lifestyle here in Colorado, being able to convince people to come and move their families here. They're concerned about the education for their children, and I think that plays a big role there. But it also goes back to going to the universities and trying to have that direct conversation of what we need, what our needs are. We don't know what all of our needs are right now. We're still in that early stage, or the early stages. But I think it's having that discussion and that dialogue that when we get to that point, we can start having that conversation of, we see these type of needs. What can you guys do? Do we need to direct or create a curriculum that's more specific? Things like that. So I think it's just being able to have those conversations initially right now till we get to that point.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Vicki, just to add, you know, in economic development, I hear from businesses across all advanced industry sectors, workforce, workforce, workforce. It's not only engineering talent, it's technical talent to fill all the jobs here in Colorado. And we're lucky that our mountains still sell. They market Colorado. We attract, of our growth in population, 65% is net in-migration. We're attracting talented people to come fill jobs in Colorado, but still it is our main issue, is how do we better educate, how do we better train? Our apprenticeship programs, the answer, some say that we need to start earlier with apprenticeships. We need to hook the kids younger into technical talent, talk about aerospace engineering. There's no easy answer on this, not at all, and we just got to keep working it hard.
But on the plus side, we have a whole host of Colorado aerospace ambassadors, both in this room and around the state, who I think can be helping to spread that message and really help make connections between education, industry, and our economic development industry stakeholders too. So as we mentioned, we do want to open it up to some Q&A from the audience. If there have been topics or points that our panelists have raised that you would like to pick up on, or if you just have a separate question that you would like to pose, now is the time.
Hi, I'd like to follow up on that workforce question. You've mentioned high schools and universities, but I also want to remind you we have a really robust community college system here that serves as a pipeline for these aerospace jobs and technician and engineering positions. So how is the Air and Spaceport and the companies planning to work with them? How are you planning to engage all parts of the educational pipeline in terms of research opportunities, internships, those sorts of things?
Anybody would like to jump in? Adrian?
I'm not sure if I'll answer this question directly, but I'll give it a shot. I can speak for reaction engines. While building our test facility, I absolutely agree that that aspect of the educational curriculum is crucial. We would be remiss if we didn't mention the civil engineering firms such as Kimley Horn. We have architects that helped us along the way. Certainly very talented welders and technicians all throughout building our test facility. And so in addition to the aerospace jobs that we have been discussing so far, I do agree with the remainder of my panelists that there's all kinds of different careers that are crucial to this aerospace industry, from finance to marketing to export compliance to technicians, welders, etc. So anything that we can do to support bringing in internships to our company certainly is something that we would like to pursue as we grow.
Anybody else? Yep. Would you like Shuji?
In Japan also internship program. So we start internship program 4 years ago. So far we had maybe over 20 students we accepted. The almost student is overseas student. Now we are open from freshman by university. So if you have a interest in Japan to join our program, please call us.
Frank?
Just to add on, and again, I know that we're still in our early stages, but one of the things that we look at also is the education at a younger age also. We work with the Space Foundation and want to work with them more to understand some of the programs that they have in place on the education side and say, what can we contribute back to that type of program or those programs across the board that will help prepare that future workforce. So that's one of the things that we are looking at in the future.
So providing that early exposure as well as experience.
Because we think it's a learning process at all levels at that age,
Jay?
Vicki, if I could add, I chair a board with the University of Colorado. It's the Colorado Space Grant Consortium, 21 colleges and universities. Most of them are community colleges. And we have events, projects at different schools and universities, including the community colleges. And we get so many from on the community college point that for the first time they're introduced to space and aerospace and go, wow, this is cool, space is cool. Then we're able to talk about schools where you can get a aerospace engineering degree or any kind of engineering degree. In fact, there's more mechanical engineers than aerospace engineers in our businesses in Colorado. But I think that hook of telling the story, reaching out to all these colleges, university kids, that especially in community colleges where, wow, this is cool, where can I get a 4-year degree? And many do transfer in to CU Boulder and get a 4-year degree. And this is a NASA-funded program with a Space Grant Consortium, and a little bit of dollars really goes a long way here in Colorado.
Great. Thank you. Do we have another question from the audience? But as we kind of go around and we meet different aspects of the aerospace industry, it seems to me there's a lot of misconceptions about aerospace, space, defense. And I'm wondering, to our panel, what are common misconceptions people have about spaceports and the commercial spaceflight industry? How can we combat these misconceptions and communicate realities more effectively?
I can jump in. One of the interesting things that I hear a lot with folks that I talk to is that NASA is the only game in town. And what's interesting is the amount of activity happening from a commercial launch side, from all the companies, ULA, SpaceX, Blue Origin. There's all this commercial activity that's happening, and very little of that's actually tied directly to NASA. And so I think there's, one of the things we can do as an industry is just help to educate other folks that there's more out there besides NASA, and that the commercial industry is doing some really exciting things that are very entrepreneurial and very innovative.
Crystal, did you? Oh, here you go ahead.
Just to add on to that, I think every time you talk about a spaceport, you think there has to be a space plane. It's not just about space planes. I think when you look at spaceports, it's about the industry as a whole. It's different pieces of the industry and the space industry working together, building a bigger piece. Having a space plane does help, by the way, but I think it's the whole, exactly. It's that whole piece coming together.
I'm trying to think of a politically correct way to respond. Well, I think a common misconception, and going back to that, is that government, that multi-billionaires are funding their companies by themselves and not getting government dollars, because that is also a falsity. You know, these companies, it is a competitive market, and everyone is utilizing the resources and trying to aim for national security and assured access to space. So, you know, back to the delegation, the idea is let's keep an even playing field and make sure that the facts are out there and that it is an open playing field in a competitive market.
Yeah, there's sort of a misconception that prime contractors aren't investing their own money so much as the entrepreneurial ones, but that's not necessarily the case. Mm-hmm. So, Adrian?
I also just wanted to build on to your point, Frank, about a spaceport not just being about space planes. Our test facility, TF2, we've been able to achieve Mach 3.3 temperatures and pressures, and that was enabled by being able to be located at the Colorado Air and Spaceport. We are very much looking forward to Colorado Air Spaceport being a hub, an incubator of that innovation and breakthrough technology that's happening here in Colorado. We're very excited for new neighbors. We hope there's many more to come.
Thank you. And I think we're on just the right track to do that, so cool.
Yes. Right, thank you. So I'll repeat the beginning. I'm Anssi from PD Aerospace, and I have a question for the other panelists, apart from my boss, obviously. So that we, PD Aerospace, we are now seriously considering starting operations maybe here in Colorado. So do you have any word of advice for us?
Yes. Make sure you're engaged with our office, because we have advanced industry accelerator grant programs that are designed for your business to grow and develop in Colorado. So you need to be fully engaged with our office, with our state incentives, because we can really help you out. As we've helped a lot of businesses in Colorado grow and develop into larger businesses in this community, and it's designed for startup businesses wanting to plant, want to grow, want to develop, to give you that edge to grow your business in Colorado. So make sure you're engaged with our office, and I know you already are.
Great advice there. So I think we're reaching the end of our time here, so I would just like to conclude with one kind of quick fire question to each of our panelists. What is the best piece of practical advice you would give to someone who is considering a career or starting their own business in a spaceport or commercial spaceflight industry?
Who's first?
Sure, I'd just say be patient. The industry, it does move fast, but it still moves slower than you typically expect. So, you know, over time, you will get there, but sometimes it just takes a little bit longer to go down that path.
Yeah.
So patience.
Patience.
Yeah, very good point, what Brian just said, and I work multiple industry sectors in Colorado, but for aerospace, the time to mature and grow and develop technology, attract that investment is much longer, you know, where you might find software development, software company, 2 to 3 years and they're flourishing. In aerospace, it could be 7 to 9 years. So patience and persistence for the small businesses to grow.
I would say utilize the assets that the state already has, and the organizations and the leaders, and, you know, I don't know in other industries what it's like, but aerospace tends to have this: what's good for space is good for all of us. I mean, yes, there's the competition, there's that, but I think that there are many organizations and outreach to help you get that workforce, to help you get the grants. So I would say to look into those and utilize them.
So there's a lot of support out there, especially here in Colorado. Cool. Frank?
What I recommend is, I think it's, when you talk about the space industry, it's not just about engineers. It's not just about mechanical aerospace. You have marketing people, you have accounting people. I was given this question some time back, and my recommendation is, you know, you don't have to be an engineer to be in the space industry. You can go and be an accountant. You can go and be I'm a marketing guy. I'm a digital guy. I'm a marketing guy. I'm an AI guy. You know, so for me, it's a little unique, but I recommend to anyone, if you're interested, try the larger companies, try the startups. Always try to find an angle to come in to get into the space industry. And I think that's very important to think about.
Great advice. Adrian?
In addition, developing relationships and attending networking events like this is extremely important across commercial and government sectors. The technologies that all of my fellow panelists are working on, it is a breakthrough technology, and the US government and regulations are working to evolve as we evolve as well. So it's important to keep those conversations going so that we can do what's best for each other.
Great point.
Okay.
Shuji.
Okay. So most important piece for Colorado Aerospace, I think it might be my company. I do my best. Each other.
I think that is a great note to finish on. Our panel has been wonderful this afternoon. They've given us such great insights and their expertise, and thanking them, giving them a round of applause.